ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour being brought to you by our good friends at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV, Medicare products. They handle it all, and they do everything they can to save you money, get the best prices. Customer service means everything to them. At Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury, go to purdyinsurance.com. Any opportunity I get to spend with Gerry Dulac, I cherish, sir. Welcome, my good friend. Great to have you back.
Steve, always good to chat with you, my friend, and it's good to be with you, as always.
Well, we'll start with golf, and before we even get to what's going on with the PGA, have you made any trips over to Oakmont to get just a look at the layout, and what has the rain done to the grass?
Well, I have several times, actually, Steve, including last week, and because they had their media day on Tuesday, I actually played.
Okay.
And it wasn't the greatest day in terms of the weather because it was a little cool, which was fine, high 50s, 58, 59. But then it was like three different waves of rain, including two of them where you had the umbrella sideways to shield yourself from it coming in that direction. And then the wind picks up. So it was getting a little dicey, and you throw in 5-inch rough that was already wet from an overnight rain, and it was just very difficult playing conditions. And but it's always a treat to go out to Oakmont and beat your head against the wall. So, but it looks fantastic. Gil Hanse just did a wonderful job with the the restoration of the golf course, and the bunkering looks tremendous. And but it's going to play very difficult. There's no trees and no water, and yet it might be the most difficult course in the world. But Oakmont needs to get the course. I mean, they need to have the course play firm and fast for the true Oakmont flavor, because if it's firm and fast, Steve, I will tell you, nobody will break par. I don't care how good those guys are. If somebody's under par, they'll win by 4 shots.
Right, they'll win by a margin if anybody's under par on that course. Just to let everybody know how good a pro is, you, of course, went out and played one. Now, what do the pros want to do on one? They want to go past the hole and then bring it back because it's an easier shot. I'm sorry, Gerry. That's not – I can't think that way.
Yeah, and it's the same way at 10, especially depending on where the pin is. If they put the pin up front on 10, you can forget it, because the best you're going to have is either something from off the green, which has the possibility of continuing to run through, or something that's just going all the way through the back, and then you have a 50-footer coming back up the slope. One of the, in fact, the most dramatic change at Oakmont was Gil Hanse took the ditch, these grassy ditches that run, I think, on like 15 or 16 of the holes that people don't. They're not known for that. People don't think about those ditches, but they're out there. And they took the ditch on the right side, and they connected it across the fairway on an angle with the one on the left side. And so that now forces the guys, it's like a 325-yard carry, not a little, but it's downhill. And then they have to decide, okay, do they want to lay up short of that ditch, or do they want to try and fly it and, tumble down the hill a little bit more? I think a lot of the guys will try to fly it, depending on the weather, of course.
Yeah.
But for me, that was one of the more interesting and I think dramatic changes. I mean, I like it a great deal. But 1 and 10 are very similar in that regard, and 12's not much different. It's the same deal. You hit it on the front of the green, and it's going to run to the back. So if there's a front pin, lots of luck trying to stop it. Look, I know these guys are tremendous. Don't get me wrong. They will find out ways to do it, but the cumulative effect of all that is just what makes it so difficult. And I could go through just about every hole and tell you where the hazards and perils are. Even number 3 which is what Tiger found out in 2007.
Yeah.
The third hole is where he basically lost it, making double bogey, trying to go right at a pin on the shelf, and he did. But he didn't go at it enough and spin it because it's too firm, and boop, went to the back and all the way off the green, and he made 6. And so it's just a bunch of little things like that make Oakmont just so treacherously difficult.
See, that's one of the differences between a Quail Hollow and an Oakmont. And that's this. There are a few, not many, but a few birdie holes on Quail Hollow, with 16 being the one that kills everybody. Everybody's going to get bogey or double there. But there are birdie holes. There are no birdie holes, in my opinion, on Oakmont.
Yeah, there really aren't many. 14 is a birdie possibility.
Yeah.
The par 3s are just very difficult. Even the, I say, shortish ones like the one at number 6, but number 8's going to play 300 yards, and 16 is playing 245, and they've changed the kind of the green a little bit with a bunker on the left, a long snake bunker that they call the coffin bunker. In 17, I mean, go ahead, try and drive it, but Yorick and Tiger, the Open in 2007 by doing just that.
Yep.
And there's some short holes out there. Guys will hit wedges into a lot of holes, but it doesn't matter what they're hitting into a lot of the holes. It's how well they're navigating what they hit into those holes and where they place the ball.
Now this, McIlroy did not get off to a good start. Scheffler did just fine. One thing we always talk about the ability of a course to fit a swing or a player's eye. Guys like Scheffler, McIlroy, maybe even Spieth, do most courses fit their eye?
Well, I think players like that, I don't want to say they make it fit their eye. They're just so good and so supremely confident in their shot-making ability that if they have to work it both ways, they'll work it both ways. They're not one-dimensional players, by any stretch. So, McIlroy ideally wants to play, with his tee ball. He wants to play a slight draw. Scheffler wants to play, a slight fade. Spieth typically likes to draw the ball as well, sometimes with some big swingers. But I think Quail Hollow sets up better for Scheffler than probably the other players. Now, what he did today, he eagled, I think, 5 and doubled 6. Yeah. But just when his round was getting away from him, he did what Tiger does in a major. Tiger would bring 2 or 3 over back to 1 or even par, or he would bring 2 over back to 1 under par, and that's what Scheffler did. He birdied 2 of the last 3 holes, and there he is at -2. And I don't care if the lead was 7, but it'd be fine. Ryan Gerard bogeyed the last 2 holes, and he's at 5 under. But Thursday, Steve, nobody wins the golf tournament on Thursday. But some guys can lose it if they shoot themselves out with a big number, because then it gets difficult on Friday, to try to make the cut. So, where Scheffler is, look at him, and he's just right in striking distance. I don't care what the final score ends up today.
What's your read on Justin Thomas? There have been good moments, and there have been confusing moments. What's your read on him?
Yeah, I think he's going to win the tournament. He's my pick to win. He's trending in the right direction. Having won a couple weeks ago, And then, even last week, finishing second, and he's won there before. I think, and he's won the PGA twice. I just think he's a good bet. I think Scottie Scheffler is going to be tough to beat after Rory won the Masters. But Justin Thomas is my pre-tournament pick. But again, Scottie Scheffler will be tough. I know that's not going out on a limb, but I think after not winning the Masters, just kind of hanging around basically. I think he comes in here to a course that fits his eye. To use your, to refer to your question earlier, and I think he's going to be tough to beat as well. But Justin Thomas is my pick.
All right, I've got to throw some Steelers stuff in here at you. How intriguing was it that the opening game was the Jets?
Very, and I think what it points up is that the league is more than intrigued about the possibility of Aaron Rodgers signing. I think, they're kind of somewhat counting on it. And I will tell you, Steve, people want to know, why is it taking so long? What's going on? Does he not want to come? Whatever thought process is going through his head in terms of what he says he wants to figure out, the Steelers firmly believe he is coming. Look, they're not just sitting around idly, like hoping he's coming. They wouldn't just be sitting still if that were the case. They firmly believe he will be their starting quarterback, for the season opener. And so, and I think the league, anticipating that, set up that game. Of course, it's also a reunion with Justin Fields. The Jets signed him. And then putting Green Bay in primetime, the Steeler game here against Green Bay. Now, granted, you're talking two storied franchises, so that alone would make it an intriguing primetime matchup. But you throw in the Aaron Rodgers factor, and that just adds to it. But I think trying to get Aaron Rodgers early, because they tried that 2 years ago, and 5 snaps into the season opener, he was done for the year. So you don't want to wait too long to put an Aaron Rodgers matchup on TV if you can help it, because, at 41, going to be 42 years old here in December, you never know when one hit takes him out for a while.
Yeah, you don't. And so now you play the waiting game. I thought Johnson, the third-round pick out of Iowa, somebody I'd be familiar with, I thought that was a heck of a pick. What was your thought on that? And I'll get to Harmon in a moment.
I couldn't agree more with you, Steve. 2 years ago, I thought Nate Herbig had a chance to make that draft really good, getting him on the fourth round, I think. And then even last year, another linebacker, Peyton Wilson, getting him on the third round, with his measurables and his accomplishments, I thought could be the steal of the draft. And I think Jack Sawyer could be too. You're talking about a physical edge rusher, a guy, a guy who gives them a presence in the run game off the edge. I agree. And plus, Stephen, from watching him, he's a football player. He's a high football IQ guy. And to me, you can't have enough of those kinds of guys. And I think, even though, look, he's not going to come in and start, but if he gets if he's your backup rotation, one of them, then you have Herbig on the other side. I just thought it was a big move and a good move by them.
Sawyer is. I watched him go from being a good college player to at the end. I thought he was an outstanding college player.
Right.
And it just and he was opposite JT Tuiamalo. So JTT is going to get most of the attention by people watching the game. The guy on the other side is the football player. Sawyer, really good. And Johnson is a running back out of Iowa.
Like that pick too.
That pick was, I think, a fabulous pick by them, because I think it balances off Warren, and this guy will get tough yards. He's not going to be a speedster, but he'll run hard.
Yeah. And he's a guy who has good vision, and seems to pick his holes. And, they kind of, were looking for that. And I think it's only a short amount of time. Like Jaylen Warren's a nice complimentary back, but he's not the feature back. But Caleb Johnson can be your feature back, and it'll only be a matter of time before he becomes the top guy. And, they'll rotate Jaylen Warren in with him just like they did with Najee Harris.
As you said, they were going to trade Pickens. Well, they did. They dealt him to Dallas. And we'll have to see what kind of value they get out of the draft picks. What does that do not only on the field, but what does that actually do to the locker room that he's not there any longer?
Well, I will tell you that was the reason they made the move, Steve. From Mike Tomlin right down to the players, they just didn't want to deal with his shenanigans anymore. And, whatever issues that you might have read about, times it by about 10. And, his team violations and fines, they just started adding up like gas at a fuel pump. And so, they got a good offer, and, they made the move. They were never going to give him a second contract, and It was either going to be start the season with him and see where you're going and then make a move. I don't think they ever just were going to let him walk because they knew he was one of their few marketable players. And so when Dallas came a knocking, they made the deal. And, on the field, at least X's and O's wise, it hurts them from this regard because, when you trade for DK Metcalf, now you have a double-barreled receiving duo with those two. And so, but now you're almost back to where you were before the trade for Metcalf, which is you have one receiver and hoping some other guys step up, including Roman Wilson. That being said, DK Metcalf is a more productive, more accomplished receiver and proven receiver than George Pickens. So, when you're looking at it straight up, they're ahead of the game with DK Metcalf over George Pickens.
All right, so now later on, Will Howard was picked. So we're back to the quarterback part again. Are you always interested as to how the fans react when any quarterback is picked and don't really seem to know a lot about the guy?
Absolutely, because that's the nature of the fan beast. And, a lot of people think, Will Howard's coming in, and, okay, let's just play Mason Rudolph and let's try to develop Will Howard, and he'll be our franchise quarterback. Well, they're not bringing him in to be their franchise quarterback. They're bringing him in because they like him. They feel he could be develop into a solid backup. And then, of course, you never know what can happen. But they didn't draft him with the idea of you never know what can happen. But they liked him. They had a high good. They had like a third or fourth round grade on him. I think as high as a third. And so he actually went around later than I thought. But I think the idea, which I fully agree with, of getting another defensive lineman, especially a big guy for the middle like Y.A. Black, I get that, and I in retrospect, I thought it was a very smart move because you don't really need a young quarterback unless you're drafting one on the first round. But I like that pick too, and I think he's a kid who can be, a nice solid backup, and who knows, maybe give you some amount of hope if that's going to be the case.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Because the reason he's got a third-round grade, you can talk measurables all you want, but one of the things is that he had the ability at both Kansas State and at Ohio State to make some plays. But he also had the ability to make mistakes. I mean, the Penn State game was a good example. As you know, Jerry, in watching the game, he threw a pick six, and he's the guy that fumbled the ball at the 1 yard line. Right, and lost the ball. I mean, but then he's also the same guy that threw the touchdown pass to Igbuka. So I mean, he's a pendulum guy, one way or the other during the course of a game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned Igbuka. That's a guy they really like too, and it's a guy I really like. He would be a perfect fit. He's a perfect number two. But yeah. So and what they liked about Will Howard too was his production. At the biggest time on the biggest stage, the playoffs, and I think all those guys that they drafted, every one of them, except you go down to the cornerback on the last round. Okay, you're talking about a guy who runs a 4.38, But otherwise, all the players they picked were productive players. And you look at like a Sawyer and you look at a Will Howard. Mm-hmm. They were productive football players at the highest level. And there was a big focus on that as well. And so, all in all, I thought their draft was very good. And, of course, they had to take a defensive lineman. They had 3 in their crosshairs. If it really came down, push came to shove, it was going to be, either Kenneth Grant or Harmon. Right. And, Grant was gone. They liked Walter Nolan, too, but of the 3, I believe they probably had him third, but they would have picked him if the other 2 were gone. But Harmon was there, and they were absolutely thrilled. He's a guy who can play a little inside, a little out. He reminds them most of Cam Hayward. And, that was a move they absolutely had to make, and they were able to do it.
My friend, I will see you next month. I'm looking forward to it.
I can't wait, Steve. And Best, real quick question. Are they planning on that, whatever side of the stadium, west side of it, on being done for the season or no?
It'll all be temporary seating on that side. It'll be done in time for the season, and believe it or not, the place may actually have a few more people in it. How about that?
So, there'll be a press box and suites and everything in time for the season. That'll be done.
Press box, well, nope. The press box will be on the east side. That'll be permanent. A temporary broadcast location will be on the west side for Jack and myself. And they're going to put up bleachers temporarily as they then build the structure around it.
I gotcha. I see. Okay. Yeah. I was asked that question last night, and I said, I don't know the timetable. I just know what I see and can't imagine it'll be ready in time for the season.
Yeah, but the temporary part will be ready for the season. 2027 will be fully done. There's your answer.
I got you. Well, Steve, always good chatting with you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
See you next month.
You got it. The great Gerry Dulac. Half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors, Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf.
You're listening to News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is, because it's Brewers Outlet time. The Beverage Supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
May means warmer weather, the official start of the summer season, and the month that we want to see you in a Kia more than ever from Sunbury Motors Kia.
I want to see you in a Kia. Sunbury Motors Kia.
Hurry into Sunbury Motors Kia now and choose from 130 new Kias available. Looking for an all-wheel drive SUV with plenty of cargo and legroom? Sunbury Motors Kia has 48 Kia Sportages to choose from, and they start just under $31,000. There's 29 2025 models and 12 2026 models on their way. Plus, SMC has 7 2025 hybrid Kia Sportage models. And be sure to check out the full Kia lineup, too. Every new Kia comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Be alive in 2025 and make May the month that we see you in a Kia from Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf.
Warranty is a limited powertrain warranty. For details, see retailer or go to kia.com.